Perfect. So I remember being in the car that night with my mom, my dad, and my little brother. I was sitting in the bucket seat, not talking to anybody, just with my headphones in, because my mind was racing, thinking about what had just transpired over the last couple weeks, how this web of lies that I had woven over 2 years even had just fallen apart. And so as we were driving down the road that night, I'm flipping through messages that I had exchanged with people that I loved and that I just completely devastated with what I did. In between that, in between thinking about where I was and then how I got there, really were the driving factors to kind of the hatred. And I decided at some point that I think trying to end my life is easier than trying to live the rest of it out. And I also think to some degree, I didn't think that I deserved to live at this point. And so I slowly and quietly undid the lock on the door, and before I knew it, I flung the door open and I was on my way out. I mean, I'm halfway out probably, and the next thing I feel is my brother's arms wrap around my waist as my dad screams and my mom grabs my shirt. They pull me back in the van and the door closes, and they don't let go of me the rest of the way back to Ames. It's unreal to me that happened, that I was at that point because of where I came from, because of how I was brought up. I grew up very involved in the church, and hearing truths on such a regular basis, somehow I became desensitized to that, and it's like a piece of steel, being dragged through a field. I just became like work hardened to the gospel. And at some point in my faith, I think around middle school, I realized that my faith really wasn't my own. My faith was something I kind of took off my parents and had like put on myself like a piece of clothing, and it didn't really fit. And when people try to control their own lives or take control of their own lives, there needs to be some way that they know if they're succeeding or not. There needs to be some kind of barometer for success, and mine was people's perception of me. And I became so good at controlling people's perception of me in a manipulative and deceitful way. Before I knew it, I'm using drugs behind my mom's back, behind my dad, behind my girlfriend's back, and based on the criteria that I had set for my life, I was doing a good job. And so I saw no reason to stop. Until the lies came crashing down. It felt like everything that I'd worked on in a terrible way, everything that I'd worked on was gone, was taken from me in an instant. And now I realize that was God working. So after that night in the van, I checked into the hospital because that's what you do. And even then, it's funny, even then I did not talk to God. I did not sit down and pray and be like, God, will you meet me here? He just did. He just did. The lowest point, I'm broken down on the floor, I'm bawling on the floor. And it's like God was kind of standing over me, just being like, Walker, are you done yet? Because I'm still just clawing my way, trying to think of ways to get my life back, the life that I wanted for myself back, that I wanted to control back. And it's like God's at the top of that pit, just being like, you're not getting out, Unless you take my hand, you're not getting out. And so even then, with some reluctancy, I just was like, yeah, God, it's your turn, if you can do anything with me, go ahead. God wasn't only patient with me, God relentlessly pursued me. that throughout the majority of my life where I am blatantly just reluctant toward God, reluctant to what he has for me, and just saying no because I'm doing my own thing. And then when that doesn't work, I make the most selfish decision I possibly can and try to take my own life that in reality isn't mine in the first place. And through all that, God doesn't leave me. He doesn't forsake me. God pursues me and doesn't wait for me to get it all back together. After that, he meets me in the lowest point of my life. I can't believe where he's brought me today, and not by my own works, but just by the grace of God. And the more I get to know this God that saved me, the more I realize just how much it is I actually need him.